Welcome back to Fide, where we explore the hidden stories of faith. Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious figures of early Christianity, Saint Anacletus, the third pope of the Catholic Church. Did you know that we know almost nothing concrete about one of the earliest leaders of the Catholic Church? That's right. Despite being just the third person to hold the title that would eventually become pope, Saint Anacletus remains shrouded in mystery, with scholars debating even his very name and identity for centuries. So who was this enigmatic figure who led the early church during one of its most dangerous and formative periods? And why is his story so important to understand, even today? Let's find out. To understand Anacletus, we need to understand the world he lived in. Imagine Rome in the late 1st century, a massive, bustling empire at the height of its power. Christianity wasn't the global religion we know today. It was a small, often persecuted sect, viewed with suspicion by Roman authorities. The followers of Jesus were still figuring out what it meant to be a church. There were no cathedrals, no elaborate hierarchies, no Vatican. Just small communities gathering in homes, sharing meals, and keeping the teachings of Jesus alive while facing the constant threat of persecution. After the martyrdom of the apostles Peter and Paul in Rome around 64 to 67 CE during Emperor Nero's reign, leadership of the Roman Christian community fell to a succession of men who would later be recognized as the first popes. First came St. Peter himself, considered the first pope, followed by St. Linus, and then our subject today, St. Anacletus. But here's where things get complicated. In some early lists, he's called Cletus instead of Anacletus. And in others, Cletus and Anacletus are listed as two different popes. So who exactly are we talking about here? The confusion about Anacletus begins with his very name. The earliest list of Roman bishops we have comes from St. Irenaeus, writing around 180 CE, who names the third pope as Anacletus. But another ancient source, the Liberian Catalogue from 354 CE, calls him Cletus. So which is it? Most modern scholars believe these are simply variations of the same name. Anacletus comes from Greek, meaning one who has been called forth, while Cletus is simply a shortened form of the same name. Think of it like someone named Alexander also being called Alex. Same person, different versions of the name. This theory makes sense, especially since the early church in Rome had both Greek and Latin speakers, who might naturally use different forms of the same name. But for centuries, some lists actually counted Cletus and Anacletus as two separate popes. It wasn't until the 16th century that the Catholic Church officially recognized them as the same person. Imagine having your identity debated for over 1,000 years after your death. So what do we actually know about Anacletus? Unfortunately, very little with certainty. According to tradition, he was a Roman who may have been ordained by St. Peter himself. He likely led the Roman Church sometime between 76 and 88 CE, a critical period when Christianity was still defining itself. The Liber Pontificalis, a book of papal biographies begun in the 6th century, states that Anacletus was a Greek from Athens, the son of an Athenian named Antiochus. It credits him with constructing a memorial to St. Peter, possibly on the site where St. Peter's Basilica now stands in Vatican City. Think about that for a moment. The magnificent St. Peter's Basilica, one of the most famous buildings in the world, may stand on a site first dedicated by this obscure figure from the early church. Anacletus is also said to have ordained a number of priests, establishing more organization in the growing Christian community of Rome. Remember, at this time, there was no formal church structure as we know it today. These early leaders were literally writing the rule book as they went along. Some sources suggest he served as pope for about 12 years before his death, possibly as a martyr, though the details of his death, like much of his life, remain uncertain. To truly appreciate Anacletus, we need to understand what being the Bishop of Rome meant in those days. This wasn't the powerful papal office we think of today. There was no papal regalia, no Swiss guards, no political power. The early church leaders were essentially pastors of a local community, guiding their flocks while trying to avoid the attention of Roman authorities. Christianity was still illegal in the Roman Empire and would remain so until the Edict of Milan in 313 CE, more than 2 centuries after Anacletus's time. During Anacletus' papacy, Emperor Domitian ruled Rome, a ruler known for his paranoia and cruelty. Some historical sources suggest Domitian persecuted Christians, though the evidence is not as clear as for persecutions under other emperors. Imagine leading a forbidden religion under the nose of an unpredictable, potentially hostile emperor. That was Anacletus' reality. Every gathering of Christians risked discovery. Every new convert represented both hope for the faith and a potential security risk. The pressure must have been immense. Despite the scarcity of information about him, Anacletus' legacy is significant. He represents the crucial link in apostolic succession, the unbroken chain of authority that Catholics believe extends from Jesus through Peter and down through all subsequent popes. By maintaining and strengthening the Christian community in Rome during a period of uncertainty and danger, Anacletus helped ensure the survival of the faith during its fragile early years. Think of it like this. Imagine you're tending a small flame in a windstorm. That's what these early church leaders were doing, protecting the flame of faith when it could so easily have been extinguished. Anacletus is recognized as a saint, with a feast day celebrated on April 26th. In artwork, he is often depicted wearing papal vestments and holding a palm branch, symbolizing martyrdom, though as I mentioned earlier, we don't know for certain if he died as a martyr. In St. Peter's Basilica today, you can find a statue of St. Anacletus, carved by Bernini in the 17th century, a testament to his enduring importance in Catholic tradition, despite the limited historical record. The lack of concrete information about Anacletus highlights a broader challenge in studying early Christian history. The first few centuries of Christianity simply didn't leave behind abundant written records. Many early Christians were more concerned with spreading their faith than documenting it for posterity. Additionally, persecutions meant that writing down too much information could be dangerous, both for the writers and those mentioned in the writings. Many records that did exist were later lost to time, destroyed in fires, wars, or simply deteriorated over centuries. It's like trying to piece together a puzzle when most of the pieces are missing. Historians and theologians must carefully examine the fragments that remain, comparing different sources and looking for consistency. The story of Anacletus reminds us that history isn't always clear-cut. Sometimes the people who shaped our world remain enigmatic, known more by their impact than by the details of their lives. So why does St. Anacletus matter to us today? In an age of information overload, where we can learn the minute details of celebrities' lives within seconds, there's something profound about contemplating a figure who shaped history yet remains largely unknown. Anacletus reminds us that leadership often happens quietly, without recognition. His story encourages us to consider the unnamed people throughout history who maintained and passed on traditions, beliefs, and values that continue to shape our world. For Catholics and many other Christians, Anacletus represents the continuity of faith, a link in the chain connecting modern believers to the earliest followers of Jesus. His mysterious story also reminds us that faith often involves believing in things we cannot fully see or understand. Well, that brings us to the end of our exploration of St. Anacletus, the enigmatic third pope. I hope you've enjoyed this journey into the shadows of early Christian history. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might appreciate it, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating religious figures throughout history. Until next time, thanks for following Fide.